went back through every one of our live streams to find the most common thumbnail related questions, and in this video, we're gonna answer them. Now, pro tip, there are a lot of pro tips in this video, so I'd recommend grabbing a notebook. Question number 1. What are the key features to making a successful thumbnail? i.e., what makes a thumbnail good? Now, I've thought a lot about this, so I decided to make a really simple checklist to remember. And if you don't check all the boxes, then your thumbnail sucks. I call these the 3 C's to get the click. And click starts with a C too, but that's just a coincidence. Okay, so number 1 is catch the eye. And we'll go into a couple techniques on how to do that here in just a second. Number 2 is convey the idea of the video. This can mean the difference between a viral video and a waste of time. And number 3 is create curiosity, which arguably is the most important thing that a thumbnail should do. Because without curiosity, why am I clicking, right? Pro tip, a lot of things can catch your eye, but I find the easiest way to figure out what catches eyes is to do something I call the feed test. Now, the feed test is when you open up YouTube on your desktop and then take note of the very first thumbnail you see. Try to figure out why it caught your eye. It could be bright colors, it could be a recognizable face, it could be big text that catches your attention, it could even be the contrast to the feed itself, like a bright green thumbnail in a sea of yellow and black thumbnails. Once you take note of it, that is one tactic you can use in your thumbnails. There's also one other eye-catching tactic that really works on me, but I have to save it for another question. We'll get to it. The most important pro tip for question number 1, and it comes from this question: do you think the first seconds of the video have to match the thumbnail? Yeah, I do. With the way that YouTube's designed today, it's so easy for somebody to just hover over a video and realize that this thumbnail matches the video or this thumbnail doesn't match the video. You set an expectation with the thumbnail, and you might meet it somewhere in the video, but if you don't meet it at the beginning, why give it the benefit of the doubt when I have so many more to pick from? That's YouTube. And that reminds me. Question number 2. Let's talk color. What is the best color? There's really no good answer to this, but I'm gonna give you an answer anyway, at least for a starting point, okay? So here are the color combinations that I noticed, all right? A little underline there. Let's start with black, white, and yellow. That one I use a lot. Black, white, green, black, white, red, black, white, red, and green. Work. Red, white, and blue. Speaking of blue, blue and green. Green grass, blue sky, and maybe an accent color. It works for a lot of entertainment channels. Black, white, red, and yellow. I see that a lot. I know black and orange was really popular for a while. Blue and yellow. The Simpsons. Recently I saw green and purple. When somebody asks what color is best, is this the answer they're looking for? Because, like, this is only just a tiny little bit. These are the color combinations that I noticed the most. You don't have to write this list down. All you gotta do is just look on YouTube and see what works. Just see what is working for others, and then, like, there's your starting point for your colors, okay? But I didn't want to leave you without an answer, so there you go. Oh wait, there's a pro tip here. If you're not sure what color to make your text, I always fall back on white. So you've got white text, all right? But what if you have a white background? Well, you could do a drop shadow. You could also do a stroke or an outline. So this little technique is what you'll see on like Netflix subtitles, because Netflix doesn't know what its text is gonna be in front of. So to play it safe, they just put a little bit of a drop shadow, a little bit of an outline around it, and something called an outer glow, which is sort of like a fuzzy drop shadow, but all the way around. So it's like a combination of the two. But there is an easier way that works in every single case. What if this was over a dark background? It wouldn't stick out. It would blend in. You wouldn't be able to see the text. But if you added a white box behind it, it wouldn't matter. So you've got white text with an outline or a drop shadow. You could do black text with a white box behind it, or you could do white text with a black box behind it, or what really pops off lately that I've seen is a yellow box with black text. I drew it backwards, but you get the idea. I wouldn't put this much effort into explaining because I know you already understand, but I am thinking with my thumbnail brain right now. I really think that this is probably going to be included in the thumbnail, so I just want to make sure that people know that there's there's some effort that's gone onto this board. There are plenty of other combinations you can use, but if you're ever questioning it, then there you go. Question number 3, is text good or bad for thumbnails? Text isn't good or bad. It's another tool to help you get the click. Text can catch the eye if it's a word you recognize, or if it's big, if it's got a certain color. It can help convey the idea by adding more context. It can even be the sole element that creates curiosity. Some niches do have more text than others, like let's talk podcast, for instance. You've got super important man over here saying something. It's a little more zoomed out typically. And then you have the box, like I talked about before, with quotes. So like without text, what would it be? It just wouldn't make it, just be a dude sitting there. As long as your text has a purpose, go nuts. But not too nuts, because question number 4, how many words should I put in my thumbnail? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? 6? There's no right answer here, but I do try to keep it as short as I can, because somebody scrolling through YouTube, they're only going to give your thumbnail like 2 seconds and then they're just going to move on. So if you happen to write a paragraph, they'll probably just ignore it. But they might ignore your thumbnail anyway if your text isn't readable, which brings us to question number 5. What is the best font to use? Any sans serif font usually works, okay? Sans is Latin for without or whatever. Now a serif is these little tail things, you know, on some fancy text like Times New Roman or whatever. This is a serif. Now sans is without. Sans serif, none of that crap. So basically what you want is any sans serif font that you can make super bold, because it's really, really easy to read. You don't always have to go bold, but it does help sometimes. Another pro tip is to go to fonts.google.com and then scroll down and select sans serif on the filter, and then you'll just get a ton. Okay, now I could be naming fonts all day, but I will give you a few that are like good starter fonts. The one that gets used a ton is Roboto. You can use Helvetica, Mont, Serrat. Poppins is okay. Gotham. Lado is pretty good. Arial. Open/source. Sans. Those are some good starter ones. I got another pro tip. So when I'm trying to get a lot of text in such a small area, these sometimes they can't fit the letters in, right? So I'll use something I call squeezy fonts, which the 2 fonts that I usually go to are Anton. That's squeezy font number 1, and then Impact is another. They're a little bit taller, and they get a little more letters into your space. So those I'll use sometimes, starter fonts. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. Question number 6. What are the major elements that you use when designing thumbnails? Which ones do you use over and over? Okay, so elements are points of focus in your thumbnails. Text is one element, like we just discussed. People are another one. Objects are pretty popular. Backgrounds, sometimes. Imagine a real estate thumbnail where it's the real estate agent standing on the left, and then in the background there's a house that he's talking about. That would be considered an element. Just remember that if the background doesn't need focus, like if it's blurred out or something, if it's just like one solid color, then I wouldn't count that as an element. Text, people, objects, backgrounds, graphics for sure. Elements are points of focus in a thumbnail, and these are probably the main 5 that I could really think of. Just a few examples here. Let's do a Let's Play thumbnail where we've got crazy game explosions happening over here, and then you've got the dude over here reacting to it. Whoa! That would be one element. 1, and then 2 elements here, and then if you want, you could write text on it if it was like really important, if it was going to add to the thumbnail. Number 3 there, and yeah. Let's do another example real quick. So we've got one guy talking here, and then we've got a graphic over here, and then maybe the word before, and then we've got one over here after, and then a graphic under that. Okay, so we've got text, graphic. Are those 2 elements? No. because really the point of focus is just right here, okay? And then you've got a point of focus here, and then you got a point of focus here. So a cluster of elements can count as one element because it's one thing to focus on. 1, 2, 3 points of focus. And yeah, that makes a good thumbnail. So the pro tip here is keep your elements to 3 or under. Sometimes you can have 4, but it's a little bit risky. Any more than 3 elements might take more than 2 seconds to understand, at which point viewers might just scroll right by. Okay, now, on the topic of elements, I can't believe how many times this has been asked. Question number 7, is it important to use the rule of thirds? How do you use the rule of thirds? What is the rule of thirds? Let me break it down for you. You've got your thumbnail. This is the rule of thirds. You cut it into 3s, and then you cut it into 3s horizontally. And so the way that people use these in thumbnails is in the rule of thirds. Let's use podcasting for instance. On the right third, you've got Mr. Professional Famous Guy, and he's saying something. Okay, now the thing that he's saying is on the left third. And then we've got text and continued text. Just on the left third, you don't have to use the top or bottom thirds for text, but that's how a lot of people separate the elements in their thumbnails. It gives order to the composition, so it makes it less cluttered. Let's do another example here. Okay, we're gonna do a half and half, all right? So let's say before this video, you had 0 views. And then after 1,000. All right, so on the right third, you have these, and on the left third, you have these. So you get the idea. A lot of creators use the rule of thirds as just a starting point, and if you scroll through YouTube, you're gonna see a lot of thumbnails where elements are separated on the left and right using the rule of thirds. Question number 8. Should I be in my thumbnail? It's a tough question. It really is. I always kind of think about it like, are you adding value to the image? You kind of have to ask yourself, who is the star? Who is the star of the show in this thumbnail? Is it you? Let's talk about Let's Play thumbnails, for example. If you're in a Let's Play thumbnail, who's the star of the show? Is it the game that you're playing? Or is it the person that you watch because of their reaction and their commentary? So in Let's Plays, you'll see a lot of people because they are the star of the show. If the packaging of the game was full playthrough, no commentary or whatever, then obviously don't put yourself in the thumbnail. All right, what's the difference between Marques Brownlee and you if you both talk about cell phones? Well, at the moment, Marques is an authority figure because he's widely recognizable. Whereas if you're a new YouTuber, then maybe not so much. So it would be more beneficial for you to focus on the product itself, maybe a feature or something, and that would give you the edge. You are offering some value that he might not via the thumbnail, and that might give you a little boost. And then eventually you do that so many times that at some point you start putting your face because people start recognizing you. When I first started with vidIQ, I wouldn't put my face in the thumbnails because I was a new guy. People really hadn't connected that I was a part of the crew. And eventually, people started responding to the thumbnails with my face in them better. So that's just how it works. That's how the authority thing goes. Faceless channels, why? Why would you put yourself in the thumbnail? If you're not in the video, don't put yourself in the thumbnail. Easy. If the video is a talking head video, I'd recommend putting yourself in there. Like the pro tip I talked about originally, you're immediately matching the expectations set by the thumbnail. But there are some channels where it's kind of in the middle. If your video is about woodworking, it can kind of go either way. If your channel's about gardening, your thumbnail might be more powerful if you're showing some specific planting technique or your raised garden or whatever. At some point, people want to start seeing you in the thumbnails because once they see your face, they know to click it because it's called familiarity bias. So yeah, this question got away from me. Question number 9, is branding important? Should I have my logo in my thumbnail? There are correct ways to brand on YouTube, and there are very incorrect ways to brand on YouTube. And so, you are a travel channel, okay? Lindsay's Travel Channel. Lindsay's Travel Channel, and then it's a big diamond right here. There's my logo. Then, we have Bali here in the background, with nice, beautiful waves, and an ocean, and a sunset, or whatever. There's Lindsay's Travel Channel, And then here is another thumbnail with basically the exact same thing. Maybe a little bit of words down here, like Bali. Which one am I clicking? I'm not clicking Lindsay's travel channel because that is ridiculous. Why? Why do people do this? Where did they get this idea? Maybe from advertising, okay? Advertising, it makes sense. But for YouTube, stop it. Quit it. You know what? I'm breaking out the red marker. No. Bad. Bad, bad, bad. Green marker. Green means good. Attention is too fleeting to take up space with something that nobody cares about but you. So when it comes to branding, I would say don't throw your logo in your thumbnail. I don't know if I made that clear. Occasionally you will come across a channel that does a little bit of branding, and I thought Corridor Crew always had their logo in their thumbnails, but I was wrong. I went and I looked at their channel. They do it on a couple, but they brand in a different way. And this is the correct way to brand. At the top of their thumbnails, you'll see some yellow text. And it's a very specific look that only they use, really. When you are scrolling through YouTube and you see that big yellow text at the top, you kind of know that that's Corridor Crew. Darknet Diaries, for instance, that's a very specific look. So, here are correct ways to brand on YouTube, okay? Same font, same colors, whatever. Face when recognized, face when you've kind of built an authority there. Same composition. So for instance, in podcasts, you'll see the right third being the person and then the left third being the quote. You'll see that for most podcasts, honestly. You'll see it for Colin and Samir. You'll see it for Diary of a CEO. You'll see it for World Class. You'll see it for the Nathan Barry Show. But they all have their separate colors, their separate fonts, and they all have their separate branding. They try not to throw a big ass logo in the way. Your logo is probably in your profile picture. People will see it there. You can even put it in the bottom right of your video. You don't need to force it everywhere because seriously, people don't care. All right, now we're on to question 10, the one that has been asked the most. And actually, you know what? Right before we get to question 10, let me answer 5 more questions, just cuz. How much time do I spend on thumbnails? I've spent anywhere from 2 hours to 4 or 5 days on a thumbnail before. Honestly, there's no right amount of time to work on a thumbnail. It's more important to focus on the idea and can I convey this idea well? What is my favorite thumbnail? This one. Is it okay to make simple thumbnails? Can I use solid colors as my background? If I'm not very good at thumbnails, can I still do everything that a thumbnail is supposed to do? Yeah, you can. I had mentioned, right at the beginning of this video that there's one technique that always catches my eye when I do the feed test. Let me show you. So, you could have everything on the thirds and blah, 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 and people can clutter up their thumbnails a bit, but if there's, one singular element that I'm looking at, like a peanut, apparently, and then the rest of the feed has, super busy thumbnails, guess which one's gonna catch my eye? It's the one with the most negative space. And here are a few more examples. Another question, should I go back and change my thumbnails? Is it necessary to change thumbnails that have bad click-through rates? You can. Videos continue to get impressions no matter how old they are. I mean, they might get less impressions as they get older, but they still get impressions. So if your video is not performing the way that you thought it should, if it's not getting clicked, it doesn't hurt to go and change the thumbnail for it. Eventually, it might get another impression and then somebody clicks it and then YouTube's like, wait, hold on. Somebody finally clicked that video. I better show it to another person just in case. And then it works like that. So it's okay to go back and change them if you have time. But I tell everybody this, your time is better spent making another piece of content rather than focusing on old pieces of content that really aren't helping you. Question 14 now. Shorts thumbnails, are they important? I don't know, really. I mean, they only show up on the homepage occasionally, but that's only if they are massive shorts. And they show up on your actual page on the shorts shelf. I don't know how many people are seeing the shorts thumbnails. Really, if you're a small channel and your shorts aren't doing amazing millions of views, I don't think they're very important. That's all I'm saying. All right, now finally, question 15 now. What software is best for making thumbnails? I'm gonna give you my top 3 and they're all free, okay? So, software number 1, we have Canva. Canva is the most popular one. It does have a paid tier that offers more AI type tools and stuff like that. I made a tutorial on it. It was pretty intuitive for a beginner, and that's cool and all. I personally use Photoshop, by the way, so that doesn't really, I don't include that in the list. And then GIMP is one that a lot of people love. It is an open source software. It has a lot of advanced tools. It's just got a really steep learning curve. And if you learn GIMP, then you should probably stick with GIMP. I used to use it back in high school. I know it's grown a lot since then. And then the last is Photopea, which I used to call it Photopea, and then people started yelling at me in the live stream, so thanks guys. But it is basically Photoshop on the browser. So you just go to photopea.com, I believe, and it's like Photoshop. The only downside is it's a little bit less intuitive, and there's ads on it, which is kind of a pain, but I'm pretty sure you can pay to remove them if I'm not mistaken. All that said, there is one software. Affinity is a paid software that isn't subscription based, right? So you only pay the one-time fee, and it is also pretty advanced. There's a lot you can do with it. So that one isn't free. Let's just break that up. So yeah, these are the options that I usually tell people when they ask me about software in the live streams. But there is another one coming up the ranks, and it was developed by vidIQ. So if you need an impressive quick thumbnail tailor-made to your video specifically, then check this video out. Check it out! Okay.